Okay, so I am here today with Alexander Cristion, and we are going to be doing this month's author interview. So tell me a little bit about yourself and what sort of things you are currently working on and or have completed recently.
Okay, I was born and raised in South Florida. My mother was a choir director. My father is a professional kickboxer. We did
Okay.
a lot of traveling. I
Uh-huh.
spent my childhood in martial arts, so I have a somewhat unique perspective on American culture, or at
Okay,
least
sure.
so I've been told.
Yeah. My fighting experience is Krav Maga, and that's pretty much it. So,
Uh,
sorry.
well, as far as fighting styles go, that's a good one.
All right, I'll take it.
So I was originally trained as a screenwriter, uh,
Oh, okay.
but the problem is you can't self-publish a movie.
No, it's a bit, just a touch more
Yeah,
complicated.
it requires people. Ugh.
Oh,
Uh,
people.
yeah, they suck so bad. Um, and so I transitioned into writing novels because it didn't require the machine and the gatekeepers and
Yeah, yeah.
hundreds of
So how
you know.
was that transition? Because screenwriting formatting is so different from novels.
Yes, I had to unlearn everything I knew about writing to write screenplays, and then
Oh,
unlearn everything I knew about screenplays to write novels.
oops.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh man.
didn't do
Yeah.
those steps in the proper order.
Well, there is no proper order to life.
Fair enough.
All
Oh,
right.
and a coffee mug like a true writer.
Well, I've had my caffeine limit for the day, so unfortunately it's just water.
Um, yeah, when I hit my limit, I moved to wine.
Yeah, well, I'm not quite there yet. It's a little early.
A shot of Moscato before you even get out of bed, and the whole morning goes smoother.
Yeah, okay, I can see that. All right, so what are you working on now?
Okay, so the first book I published was Alexzander. The series is entitled "By the Hand of Dragons,"
Ooh.
and my protagonist becomes this great hero, and there are these five legends that
Uh-huh.
they're like Hercules'
Yeah, yeah,
nine
yeah.
labors. So I pick
The
one of those.
unedited version of the labors or the edited version because they get a bit graphic in there.
Unedited.
Got it.
um, I kind of eased into it. There are a couple bad words. There are some horrific deaths. And I kind of pulled a George Lucas. So I released book four first, so you start
Uh-huh.
up in the thick of it. The
Okay,
second
sure.
the second book I released is the first book, which goes back and hopefully is better received than his prequels.
Ah. Well, yeah, they weren't wonderful.
He missed a few marks, but just a little bit. But so the first book that I wrote, it was 800 pages because I wrote it by hand.
Okay, sure.
The book printed out to like 514.
Sure.
The second book I wrote is 1404 pages.
Okay. So Victor Hugo style.
And that just can't be done. It would be 2 years of me working on a thing that is yielding nothing. No one is
Right.
seeing it. It's not bringing in any profit. So I'm going to break it up into smaller books.
Right.
And I had originally intended to write three giant doorstops, and then three intermediary novellas.
Okay, sure. Yeah, yeah.
But now it's looking like there's going to be one doorstop and eight novellas, just because the turnaround on a 300-page book versus a 600-page book is
Is
not
yeah,
double. Yeah, it is
considered
exponential.
different. Yeah. Okay, so this is going to be sort of high fantasy style.
I've had my work described as if Quentin Tarantino directed Lord of the Rings.
Ah. So, yes, sort of. But just a
it,
touch of trouble in there.
yes, humans play the smallest role in it.
Cool.
The basic premise is the overarching story
Uh-huh.
is there is a kid who wants to be a hero,
Yeah.
and he goes through everything one has to go through to become a hero. And when he gets to the end of his journey, he identifies more with the villain than with the hero he set out to be.
Oh, I love villain identification.
So we go through every little compromise that pushes him closer and closer to the dark side, and why it's so difficult to change a system from within, because the system changes you as
Yes.
you climb
Oh,
through it.
that is exactly my favorite kind of story. Thank you very much. I'm going to have to read this now.
So at the very beginning, he is a child soldier, and he's told that they're made that they have this noble goal to save the world, and yada yada yada, and he completely devotes himself to being the best soldier that he possibly can be.
Mm-hmm.
And then when his power starts to rival that of his masters, his ability to follow orders begets becomes compromised, and they pretty much become custodians to clean up his arrogant messes.
That's great. Sounds
So,
like every political situation ever.
oh yeah, yeah. So I'm writing two stories right now, and I'm editing one. But the story that I'm writing right now is a genre that does not exist. I call it a warrior romance. So there is it's a different kind of thing.
Okay.
One of these child soldiers has precognition. She can see the future,
Ooh.
and she guides them because she can kind of see how things are going to turn out.
Is this like full on precog or just sort of bits and pieces?
Oh no, I despise that with a fiery passion. Uh, those tropes where like the wise sage comes and says, when you see the diamonds from the sky sit upon the earth, then you will know that it is time. Those people die. Those people die horribly.
Yeah.
The concept of you could just tell me what to do and save the world, but no, you
Yes.
want to be all mysterious.
Turn left, go to the fork in the road and you'll be just fine.
Thank you. Is that so hard? I pretty much go full bore at tropes like that. So my giants are intelligent and beautiful, as
Oh,
opposed to big
yeah,
dumb
normal.
creatures. Yeah, the humans are really the most horrible of the people in this
They
thing.
usually are.
Isn't that the truth? But her name is Kahar. Kahar has this precognition, and
Uh-huh.
what she cannot see is who survives this great battle.
Oh,
They're,
so
they're way too
everyone
many.
dies?
Possibly she dies, and so she can't see what
Oh,
happens.
okay, that would make sense.
But when the power first arose, she could not control it, and she could not differentiate between a alternate timeline or the present. So that doesn't make you a lot of friends, at
No,
10 years old.
probably not.
And the protagonist was the first person to just come and say, "You're different, but different isn't bad."
Uh-huh. Cool.
And she is just head over heels enamored with him,
Mm-hmm.
and she's
Mm-hmm.
almost uncomfortably zealously devoted to him. It's an unhealthy relationship. It's kind of a Harley Quinn obsession
Hmm.
more so than genuine love.
Interesting.
So what she does is she carves out a little bit of time for them to have a date where she is not going to see what happens first. She's just going to be with him in the
Mm-hmm.
moment, and they're going
Mm-hmm.
to have that. It is graphic. It it is. She does
Oh,
not waste an opportunity.
I
So it's called Blood of the Lolicorn. I was calling it originally Blood of the Unicorn,
uh-huh.
but to be fancy, I gave my unicorn butterfly wings. And then I was informed that a unicorn with butterfly wings is not a unicorn, so we went
Oh,
looking for a word. And
wait, wait, hold on a second. How is that not a
I don't know.
unicorn?
It's like Pegasus is a horse with wings,
Yeah.
but a horse with a horn and wings is neither a unicorn nor Pegasus. It is its own thing.
All right then.
Allegedly, according to Google. I don't know.
I feel like I've just messed up all of my early fantasy stories now. Oops.
I have no idea. But so that's the one I'm writing, and it's a very different. Uh, Most of my series is third person omniscient, so the
Hmm.
narrator knows everything.
Yeah.
And this story is first person distant.
Oh.
So we only know what she knows, and we experience what she sees and what she feels. And the thing that's most surprising to me,
Mhm.
particularly from women, is she will have these thoughts that I think are like Romeo and Juliet. Like it's romantic on the surface, but if you give it any amount of thought, it's insanity.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, oh, I'm 16 and my 15-year-old boyfriend is gone, so I'll just knife myself. Like the
I'm pretty sure she was 14, but
oh yeah, pardon
because
me.
that makes it so much better.
Yeah, yeah,
I mean,
exactly. It was insanity. But they read these things and they say, "I love this part," and I was like, I don't think that's healthy at all.
yeah, well, welcome to some of these weird romance tropes out there.
Yeah, yes, indeed. I recently learned the word uh, dubcon. Have you heard this phrase?
No,
In the
enlighten the linguist.
in the erotic world, it is known as dubious consent. It is when
Oh,
someone
ah,
doesn't
okay.
necessarily give consent, but we get to see in their thoughts that they were somewhat going along with the thing.
Consenting.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I was like, the fact that there's a word for it
that's
is,
a bit disturbing.
and yeah, thank you. Make sure it's not just me, because I'm not right in the
No, 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 it's definitely a bit disturbing.
head.
Okay, cool.
So what
So
do
first
you
person,
write? You
first
write. You
person,
do write.
huh?
You do write.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
What
Many things.
what is your baby? What is your genre? What is your real
Okay, right
home?
now I am getting my sci-fi dystopian novel ready for publication in October. Hooray! Very excited.
Nice.
Um, so I just finished my final round of edits, and it is complete. Very, very excited. So it's called Speaker of Words, and it's set in an alternate world called the Republic, where everyone has a place. You are placed into a role, and you are there for everything that you have, that you would people that you would interact with. They're all sort of laid out for you.
Right.
And my story begins with a an aging inspector with their I guess it's sort of military police, but more investigative side than that. And he is searching for these dissidents who have started popping up and leaving messages around in this language that no one has heard of. So what he has to do, he goes, Dawes, his name is Maddox Dawes, and he goes and finds the only linguist.
Great name.
Thank you. I had good fun picking that one out. So Dawes finds a linguist who is sort of semi-familiar with the language, and he has to figure out, okay, what is it actually saying? And it's talking about choosing free will and your own desires over the desires of others, and how you can create a society that has that is a successful society and doesn't just fall into complete moral decay.
Right.
So it doesn't end beautifully. I'll just leave it at that. There are too many sensitive spoilers in there for me to get into full on detail. But oh, I'm having so much fun with this one. It's gonna be great.
I've written it down. That you've already sold a copy, just so you know.
Oh well, thank you. Hooray! This one is my I've been working on this one for a while, so it's probably my favorite of the ones I've written. I write in many different genres. I've done fantasy, I've done murder mystery, I've done other sci-fi. And pretty much anything I can get my hands on, I will go and have a go.
That
So,
is awesome. I wish I could do that. I cannot do that. By and large, I'm a hate writer.
mhm.
So this story was originally a movie.
Oh.
After I went and saw Lord of the Rings was in like 2003,
Yeah,
and
okay, sure.
it just ends with Frodo across the river and Aragorn looking at him, and then the movie just ends, right? And I was like, what? And I went home and in my frustration wrote an entire screenplay in one sitting, just like
Oh, wow,
it
well
should have
done.
happened and that could have been, and trying to get that optioned and picked up and going through the whole thing,
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
and then the internet explosion happened, and it was possible to, between YouTube and Facebook, you can pretty much launch any career that you want.
Yes, it is astonishing and definitely not what I would have pictured doing as a writer. 10 years ago.
10 years ago? What were you, like 7?
Well, 10 years ago, I was still trying to figure out, okay, what am I actually going to do that's making money in this world? Because,
Yes.
I'm awfully fond of actually having food.
You know what? Daily. It is such a habitual thing.
It is. It really is. So, yes. And then I graduated from Edinburgh, and I said, you know what? Do the writer thing. Just go do it. You have this chance, so why not take it?
I'm glad. I'm listening to this video series on Nietzsche and all of his
Okay.
ideas on the not the superior man, the higher man, and those who break from convention, and those who follow their passion, and those who accept their madness in order to keep their genius. And I just like somebody much smarter than me is okay with all of the madness that seems okay to me, and that's a good sign.
That's usually not a bad thing. I mean, of course, these people following all of the mainstream things don't realize they're actually following people who decided they didn't like the mainstream, and it became mainstream. And so it's complicated. I'm just gonna go do the writer thing, and if someone wants to pick that up and say, "Ooh, shiny," then hooray! But
hooray indeed.
But I'm doing this because I like it, because I am a writer, and honestly, if I were to go into an office, I'd probably die of boredom.
I move boxes from big trucks to small trucks for FedEx Ground.
Ooh. Ah. I don't mean to be. I hope you have, interesting things to listen to and talk about during that time.
What I do is I take a piece of paper, right, and I trifold it, and then I write little ideas as they pop into my head.
Oh, nice. Very nice.
And then I get home and I have 12 of these stupid things. I have to put the page number up there so I remember what order it's in. And then I clack, 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 clack.
Very nice. I wish I were that organized. I cannot tell you how many ideas floating around in different notebooks and places that are probably related to one another that I will never put together just because they're in different spots.
Give it time. I have I was in the military for a while. And every 2 or 3 years, the longest you can stay in one place is 3 years.
Okay.
You have to pick up and move completely.
Yeah.
And you'll find these boxes that you never unpacked from the last move.
Oh.
And then you're just like, well, do I even need this stuff? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I hope it wasn't important.
Yeah, and I was holding on to all of this stuff because there were these little fragments of ideas that I didn't want to lose. So I finally went through them, and I found multiple copies of the same idea. So it's like every year I would come up with the same ideas over and over again.
That's probably a hint that you should, do that.
But what it meant is I could throw this stuff away. Like I'd been holding on to these ideas. I was in such a cycle because I wasn't exercising those demons. I wasn't moving forward. I was cyclical in my creativity, and so there was no point to keep stacking different copies of the same thing. And there's a freedom. There's a freedom to not having piles of boxes.
Yeah.
Where it says like kitchen, and then it's crossed out, and then it says living room, and it's crossed out, and then it says books.
All the books.
Oh,
yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna go back to the screenwriting thing because I'm very interested. With all of the streaming companies doing their own things, do you think it's become easier for people to get their work out there or harder?
Easier. It is much easier to get out there. It is much harder to be a star. The thing is, most industries right now don't have a star. Like there was a time where you had Sylvester Stallone, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Bruce Willis. Those were your action stars.
Right.
And we don't have that today.
No.
You had your big comedians. You had your Robin Williams. Who was it? Robbie Williams, Goldberg, and.
Oh, I'm really bad at actor names.
But there were these 3 comedians that hosted a charity event every year.
Oh,
and went to charity. But you know what I mean? But we had,
I know what you mean.
Superstars. And we don't anymore because it's so saturated. And the quality has taken a hit.
Yeah, it really has. I get so frustrated.
But the one thing that I am happy with is the fact that if you are successful at navigating social media, if you're successful at navigating social media, you can find your audience no matter how niche you are. Is it
Right.
niche or niche?
It depends on where you're from and who you're asking. I've had
Ah.
people say niche, I've had people say niche, and they've been in the same place. Um, I usually say niche, but
Mhm.
it doesn't actually matter.
If it's good enough for you, it's good enough for me.
All right. Yeah. Okay. So interesting. Because I see the quality in most of the television shows and movies that I have to slog through to find something interesting, and I just want to go and shake them by the head and say, "Do you not know how a story works?"
Here is what is fascinating to me. Between the screenwriter
Mm-hmm.
and the director,
Mm-hmm.
there are 13 steps.
Oh my goodness.
So I do not understand how a bad movie gets made. No
Okay.
one along the way recognized that this was terrible.
Yeah.
Really?
How does? Oh wow. I didn't realize it was that many steps and that many people.
So here's one of the most fascinating things I learned. What we were doing in a screenwriting class is we would watch a scene
Mm-hmm.
and then we would read the screenplay for that scene, and we
Mm-hmm.
would contrast how differently what the words on paper are look like in film.
Interesting.
So you could have this beautiful idea. Minas Tirith is the only place that J.R.R. Tolkien describes in Lord of the Rings,
Yes.
and he describes it as this shining white city of marble carved right from the mountainside.
Yes.
But when you see it on film, it looks like chalk. Like marble is not a. We're used to
Yeah,
like a
it's
marble countertop
limestone,
that is
sandstone,
polished.
that sort of a
Yeah,
thing.
like it's not. Some things work on paper and they don't work visually.
Right. Yeah.
So we were studying that. But I ran across the fight scene in Return of the Sith, Revenge of the Sith,
Yeah. Okay.
between Obi-Wan and Anakin,
Right.
and George Lucas wrote "They fight." There's just
Uh,
a bracket and they fight because he's got a stunt coordinator. The actors are going to do it. They got to block it out. There's going to be set pieces. There's going to be CGI. So it's not
wow.
even, yeah. So he just wrote "They fight."
Huh. I mean, I guess you can do nothing when it comes to having everyone else do their job, but that's so weird for me. I would have a hard time with that.
I think you could write whatever you like. And then
Hmm.
you get there and it's like, well, Ewan McGregor can't do a backflip. So this whole part of the fight scene is not happening. So, and you're just kind of limited by your resources.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like, all right, this thing where we set his head on fire and he keeps fighting even though his skull is burning, the
Uh-huh.
insurance company won't let us do that. So, you know, and it's one of those things where you've got an assistant director and you got a cinematographer and the lighting guy and then insurance people and then you got the stuntman and the actor and all that. And there's so many individual departments into
Mm.
making one story. And I think a lot of that is why when a thing is a singular vision, like when George Martin wrote his books, it was a singular vision,
Right.
one writer, one director, one actor, one voice.
Right.
But when a TV show got a hold of it, and now there are 300 people with an opinion,
Yeah.
we see how season 8 turned out.
I haven't honestly I haven't actually read Game of Thrones or watched the television series, so I don't know how any of that turned out. I just know it seems to be blowing up on social media, and
I'll give it to you like this. This show should have been 13 seasons.
uh-huh.
They decided to end it at 6,
Is that
but they wanted to tie up all of the plot lines they had started
oh no.
in one season. Yes.
Oh, I hate that. I really do.
Like imagine like this love story that's been 3 books long, right?
Sure.
And the new author comes in and it's like, we're gonna wrap this up 2 paragraphs. Yeah, you're just like, no, what
Oh,
are you doing?
cringe.
No.
Oh,
Cringe
oh,
indeed.
that's okay. Not another terribly good incentive to watch it. Okay.
It's one of those things like Just because there's a car crash on the end doesn't mean you can't enjoy the road trip.
True. True. Just be aware that it's coming.
Yeah, buckle up.
Okay, good to know. Well, it's on my list for when I ever actually get around to having enough free time to bother.
I
But
do have a question. What is your first choice for entertainment? Because for me, my third choice for entertainment is reading.
uh-huh.
And people find it very strange because I'm a writer. But it's such an investment to read a book.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's like 14 hours that you gotta, sink into this thing. And you really don't know until about hour 7 if it's gonna be worth your if it's gonna be worth your time.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
20 minutes into a movie, you're like,
Yeah. I don't know. I think I read so much. I can read so quickly that I do about 10 books a week. Yes, that is an accurate number. Thank you. So it doesn't take me as long, and I don't feel like I've invested as much time. But when my brain is on overload, I will definitely prefer watching something, and usually something interesting with a bit of story, because if it's just mindless blow it up, I could just do that any day. That doesn't actually interest me. So there has to be some sort of story there. But I don't know. First preference for entertainment. Ooh, that's tough. I don't know.
well, it sounds like books.
Books probably, but I mean honestly, if I had to do something every day, I would rather go out and actually have an activity and do something
Mm.
as opposed to just living continuously in books as much as I love them.
You oughta get it. Well, those 2-person bicycles. And you just kind of roll along and get out. You're getting sun. You're getting a modicum of exercise, and
Yeah,
you're still booking it up.
That'll work. Yeah. All right. If I get a 2-person bicycle, I will take a picture and let you know.
Oh.
Unlikely to happen though. I'm more likely to do a unicycle because I actually have one of those, even though I have no idea how to use it.
Why is that? That is absolutely fascinating and somehow not surprising.
Well, actually, my dad got it ages ago because he used to do unicycling way back in the 70s.
You have a unicycle from the 70s?
No. This is more modern. He got one because he wanted to relive that, and so I didn't have the patience at that point to actually learn how to ride the unicycle, so I didn't. But it is sitting in the garage and waiting for the proper moment.
I look forward to the video clip.
Oh, yeah, that'll be good times. Good times. Rating disasters with E.G. Stone.
The title is amazing. I would click on that podcast. That's awesome.
See, now it's gonna actually have to be a series that I do.
Yeah. Oh, someone gave me an absolutely ridiculous idea, and this is about 15 years ago, and there's nothing to it. It's garbage, start to finish, but I can't let it go.
Okay.
And it's the story of a bouncer at a comic book shop, and I just
What? I didn't know comic book shops had bouncers.
they don't, and I'm just like, is there a hostile nerd community in the neighborhood?
Oh, I don't actually. That's
Yu-Gi-Oh kids versus the
so
Pokemon
many
kids.
possibilities.
Right, and I've sat down and I've tried to, and it is a ridiculous concept, but I cannot let it go. It's almost been 2 decades, and I cannot let it go.
That sounds fantastic, actually. If you're ever looking to deviate from what you're doing now, then go for it. Oh, I feel actually, I think that would probably make a really good podcast too.
I can't imagine what a story would be. Like,
well, I mean, does it actually matter?
probably
you just get
not.
enough interesting characters to go in and sort of improv it.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Now that you give it that, see, now no, I must stay the course.
Yes, let's add another thing to the to-do list.
Yeah, I'm gonna dream of a bouncer on a unicycle, reading comic books, and wake up confused. Worse things have happened.
No, that'd be fun. Okay, so now I have plans for the writing disasters series that I'm gonna do. So that'll be great. All of my adventures, things that you should not be doing.
Should not be doing. I will be president of your fan club. On
Ah,
board.
oh, that's great. Okay, um, trying to get back into a slightly more serious writing topic.
Let us
What
go.
do you think of all of this social media marketing thing?
3, I absolutely hate it. 2, I think it is a necessary tool because of the age we live in.
Yeah.
And 1, it is beautiful the way the discovery of nuclear energy is beautiful.
Hmm.
The potential for all the good it can do and the potential for all the bad it can do is,
Hmm.
from a observant point of view, just magnificent. Just the possibilities. Um, Most people will use it horribly,
Mm.
but hopefully they just kind of become a beige haze in the background and they don't really speak for the community. And there will be some people who would use it to magnificent, just stunning effect. And whatever comes next will come out of this sharing of uh, information. And not
Hmm.
so much the sharing of information, but the speed at which you can share information.
Oh yeah.
Just that someone can discover a new particle in Iceland,
Hmm.
and then researchers can start working that same day in New York.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? It's this is an incredible time to be
Oh,
alive.
it's stunning because you can communicate so quickly, but you can also communicate misinformation just as quickly.
Oh, propaganda. What do you
Uh-huh. Not even just propaganda, but just those little whispers that you hear every now and again to say, "Oh, this is happening," but it's not really. And
Someone sent me a Facebook post that said, "So Robert Pattinson is the new Batman."
I didn't know the old one had vanished.
So apparently they're replacing Ben Affleck, but I hadn't previously thought of pushing a brick into my face at high velocity. But then I read that and I was like, if only I had a brick. I need a brick right now.
Oh,
And it turns
yeah.
out that wasn't the case.
Oh, huh. Okay,
Yeah,
interesting.
you can breathe a sigh of relief. Just,
Yes. Ooh. So how do we differentiate though between the good stuff and the bad stuff? It's almost impossible these days.
what we have to do is we actually have to create a subculture. We have to when the internet first was unleashed on the public, it was the Wild West.
Hmm.
And about 5 years in, came the rise of the grammar Nazis. and
Yeah.
they kind of were a palisade against just absolute lawlessness. Now in forums and discussion rooms, and you can kind of get along with that. But if you post something and you're from Boston and you spell color with a U, they are at you. they, they are going to descend on you. Like,
British spelling have been for years.
well, you've lived in the Brits, so that you know
Nah. Well, they're technically American, so that could be problematic.
it can. One of my writing partners is English,
Uh-huh.
and she'll when we exchange things back and forth, uh, her system flags all of these words.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because they're the
Their
Americanized spelling.
way of spelling. Oh, yeah.
And when I make my edits and I send it back, she's like, "Why did you ruin my paper? What is wrong? You're missing so many vowels."
There's this thing called the language setting. You can
Yeah,
change the language. Although, to be fair, I have multiple languages on my computers, and sometimes my programs get a little bit confused as to whether or not I'm using Russian or German at the time.
do you speak multiple languages?
Yes.
Okay, okay, then that's fine.
Linguist, language nerd. So I've
No, no, no,
had.
I got you. But if you just had like multiple, it's like sometimes I just like to read in Prussian. Do you
uh,
speak Russian?
No.
No, no, I don't understand a word of it. Just like the squiggles.
Well, okay, for conlanging, I do like looking at some of the squiggles, and I don't actually understand what other people's languages mean, but that's because I don't have experience in their languages. And if I really wanted to learn Klingon, then I could,
Yeah,
theoretically.
yes, you could. Because I am a jackass, I learned how to say I don't speak, like, non sprechen Sie Deutsch, right? I don't speak German.
Yeah.
But I say it in German.
No, that's
And
actually okay.
and
Because
when
if
you
people
say that,
don't, people don't speak
to
English.
Germans, they blink at you. But
That's very German, yeah.
and but I could say that in 13 languages. I could tell you I don't speak your language in 13 different languages,
That's
um,
fantastic.
just because I didn't know any other words in the languages,
Mhm.
but I knew that, and I don't. It tickled me for a decade. That was just so entertaining to do.
No, that's great. Yeah, I wish I knew how to say that in all of the languages I don't speak because that would be so much fun. Of course, as soon as I start learning one phrase, I have to then learn all of them. It's
Oh
just
wow!
yeah. Yeah. So as soon as I start picking something up in a different language, then I have to learn the language itself. That's how I seem to function.
If
So
you
I'm
haven't,
not doing that at the moment. I have other things to do with my life.
yes, if you have not seen footage of Trevor Noah speaking all the different languages he speaks,
Mm.
find that. It is fascinating, especially when he speaks Kosa.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
Uh, it is. I think he has 6 languages he's fluent in, and
Mm.
13 he could order food.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Okay.
I
Sure.
don't have that ear. I can't, like, I can tell when I can tell the difference between Russian and Georgian. I can tell the difference between Spain Spanish, Mexican Spanish, Puerto Rican Spanish. But I'm from Florida, so that's kind of a
Yeah. Yeah.
a non-starter. Um, but I can't. It doesn't stick.
Right.
Like it's just a sound that I'm mimicking. Like tweet.
Yeah.
It's not, it doesn't translate into words. So
Huh.
I envy your ability.
Huh. All right. Interesting. No, that's cool. Languages are just what I've always done. So I maths, meh, meh.
Wow,
I can
you
produce
are
it.
European.
What?
Math is only plural in Europe.
Oh, oops. That's a thing I need to unlearn again.
And it's just one of those things that like being in the military and being from South respond in
Mm-hmm.
this. And I wouldn't just like, well, now the singular thing that we have is light speed travel.
Mm-hmm.
We still have to have food in boxes because we haven't figured out how to manipulate energy and to create food on the fly. There's no teleport. We still use bullets. The only
Oh my.
thing is we can go to another planet and live like it's 1860. That's all we've achieved. I do not see why someone would read 600 pages of that, but to each their own. Give me the fantastic. Give
Mm-hmm.
me the exceptional. I don't want the story about the cop who goes to work every day for 20 years and nothing happens. That's not
Yeah.
the story I want. Will come out of it is being when I graduated 9 months ago.
Oh, congrats.
Oh, yay! But it was being pushed because um, the syllabus is always behind the trend. It's always
Yeah.
behind where the
Oh,
rest of the
oh,
world
that
is.
is academia all over.
Yeah, so they're teaching these kids all of these things. Don't do this. Always do this. Never do this.
Mm-hmm.
And it bothered me so much. There was so much that I wanted to do. There was so much of the story that was inside me that I was told this is not how stories work. This is not. It's like when you're writing this, who is the narrator? And I said the narrator is the camera because
Mm-hmm.
I came from the screenwriter room, and it's like, well, you can't write like that because readers will get confused. It's like I'm not sure that's the case because readers watch movies. I think they can grasp it, and it's like the difference between third person omni and head hopping is whether or not you confuse the reader.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so what you're saying is don't write badly. It's a very simple concept to me, but I see that this advice being drummed into the heads of students that will not
Mm-hmm.
serve them well in the real world. I
Yes.
see this concept of prey on people's insecurities and their loneliness and feed them this thing that makes them feel like a little more than they are for a minute, rather than write a story that makes them realize they can be more than they are.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely would agree because you can be transported to a different place for a while, or you can have something to think about that may actually change things.
Yeah. Uh, uh, the concept of one person can change the world is a cool thing,
Hmm.
and but it doesn't have to be like the world is going to blow up and everything is going to be dead and blah 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 and you've got to save the universe.
Again.
Yeah, something as simple as there is a virus and it is destroying corn,
Hmm.
and then you look at the domino effect of the planet Earth without corn.
Oh my.
Yeah, and you realize like how big a thing this small thing is,
Hmm.
and then you can still get your tension and you can still get your stress and your conflict and all of that. um but no matter how beautiful the prose, and I do like some purple prose, no matter how grand the concept, if you don't show me something I haven't seen before, the best a story can be is a B. Like, to get an A from me, you've got to take me someplace I haven't been before.
Right.
I want
No,
to see
I
that.
probably the same way, where you won't get to that, top tier review if I have seen this before. I mean, if it's good, then okay, great. That's a good story, and I appreciate a good story.
Yes.
But give me that little bit extra.
I do have a question. Have you ever read Jim Butcher's The Codex Alera?
I have read his other books, and I keep meaning to get my hands on that series, but I have to actually go to a bookstore for that, and there's not one terribly close to me. So,
you, they have invented this thing, brand new. It's called Amazon.
yeah,
Like the
yeah,
ancient
I do
warriors
that.
or the rainforest. And
Hmm.
if you
No,
use the
I
very
definitely
box that you are on
definitely
now,
could do Amazon. I order ebooks on there all the time, but when I'm gonna buy a paperback, I want to go and touch the book I'm going to buy.
I understand that. For books, that is not the case. For something that if it is other than advertised, there will be physical discomfort.
Oh,
For
yeah.
example, I can't buy shoes sight unseen. Like I need to stick my foot in the shoe. Like
Uh-huh.
I try not to order pants online. It's too
Mhm.
iffy.
Yeah.
But a book I trust, a phone, a DVD. I think they're gonna give it to me like they advertised.
Mm, probably, and it's probably just a mental thing for me because I can order almost anything off of Amazon excepting books, like paperback, hardback books, and I don't know why.
Well, we've all got our thing.
Eh, eh. I'm a bit weird. I've been practicing weird for years and seems to be working pretty well.
Hey, weird is the only thing I'm good at.
So, okay, the Codex Alaria. As soon as I get my hands on one, yes. I have read his other works and I like them quite a lot.
Um, the thing about Jim Butcher is, he'll spend the first book boring you to death with
Mm.
everything that you need to know.
Hmm.
And at the 3/4 mark, the story takes off. But for the rest of the series, you're off and running.
Yes.
And it's the very same thing. But it's as complex as Game of Thrones was.
Huh.
Or I'm trying to find it. It's as complex as Wheel of Time.
Wow.
But at the end of it, there are no loose threads.
That's
None.
weird.
It's
Oh.
it's magnificent.
Oh.
It is
Mm.
masterful.
Okay, now I really do need to go to a bookstore.
I've never put down a book and I responded as though I'd just finished dinner. I was like, ugh,
Yeah.
it was just, but I digress.
I'm not sure where the digression started. I lost track.
Yeah,
Oh,
I'm a rambler.
no, no, I do the same thing. Usually I have ended up talking about technology and moved somewhere into like natural goat's milk versus this weird.
Yeah,
It's,
we've started tracking the conversations. It's like hey, do you want to go see X-Men on Friday? And
mm,
3 minutes later, we're arguing about penguins, and we're like, how did we get here? How did this happen? And
oh, those are the best conversations.
yeah, just like
No
where
idea what's
are
going on.
we right now? Do we even have a movie time? Are we going? Yeah, those are
Yep.
fantastic.
Hmm. Hmm. All right. Well, it has been absolutely fascinating to talk with you. You are very entertaining, and I am super excited about finding your book and reading it. So,
Woo!
as soon as I get around to the internet, I will go and yeah, I have a huge list of things to do today. My phone has gone wonky on me, so
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, that's a trip. Anyways, so it has been great talking with you. Thank you so much for doing this, and I
It has
will.
been a pleasure. I look forward to reading your work. You
Uh,
are as amazing as your praises had been sung.
oh,
So
thank you.
thank you.
Gosh. Well, thanks for talking with me, and I will see you around.
Thank you for having me. You have a wonderful day.
You too. Cheers.
She's so British.